Well, thanks, Roger. Tonight we're having a program that was, it's going to be a little bit abbreviated because we have the other business to do. But we're talking about an exciting program, and I'm not going to get into it too much. Going to be 3 speakers tonight, myself, and as Roger said, I'm a biologist, and environmental consultant, and plant guy. Jon Chan is he's an architect by trade, but he's started he's very, very involved in the recovery of Altadena. And Rich Minnich, who is also here, Rich in the back. And Rich Minnich is a very famous botanist, has a book out called California's, wait, is it disappearing or fading? Fading. California's Fading Wildflowers. Still available at the UC Press that you can get. And so we are going to start by Jon talking a little bit about how this program came about, and then it'll be Rich, and then Jon, and then me. And so.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much, Ty. And thank you. Congratulations to the new leadership here. I guess we just witnessed a momentous occasion. You know, and appreciate the energy that is in this room and for the work that you guys have been doing over, you know, the course of the growth of CNPS across the region. I was getting a little bit of a lowdown earlier about how chapters start, how they begin, and here we are. But we're really grateful. I just wanted to give a little bit of framing on the work that Ty mentioned, which is that on the heels of the Eaton fire, I myself unwittingly founded a think tank called the Wildfire Recovery Think Tank. It's comprised of cross-sector expertise, wildfire victims, as well as many Altadena residents, ex-LA County leadership, mostly retired. It's a fantastic group that is, shall we say, hedging the calculus of recovery to frame aspirational outcomes. And there's a broad range of things that we're working on that deals not only with urbanism, neighborhoods, how we address the incrementality of recovery, but also the bigger picture of sustainability and ecological recovery as well. And so that is a big part of the conversation. Entering the wildfire recovery think tank space, WRTT, you know, Ty himself has been a real amazing contributor in the conversation with his knowledge. And then, of course, it was Rich's book that Ty just mentioned, the Fading Wildflowers of California, that magnetized our reaching out to him, and Rich has joined us in the conversation. So why don't we pass it up let's welcome Rich here as he comes down. This guy drove all the way over from Riverside through the rain today, so thank you.
I don't know how this.
Do you want to stand by the computer or just say next, or?
Yeah, I just say next.
Yeah. Orchid will run the slides, and the owl picks up the audio. And
I'd like to start with the first slide where, does that blow up now? Yeah.
Yes, you blew it up.
Yes, it looks great. Well,
This is a photograph of
it's not showing.
in 1898 of the Altadena poppy field, a famous poppy, was it the famous poppy field that was essentially the deacon of poppy fields of all Southern California, and everybody knew about it. The Los Angeles Times covered the status of this poppy field from 1886 to 1918. Every year they recorded the status of the poppies and other flowers. It's a microcosm of what this state was like. This entire state was, in the lower elevations, was covered with vast wildflowers. And recorded by 3 groups of people. First, the Spanish came along, and they, in the 1769, and had a major expedition up the coast from San Diego to San Francisco. And they go, it's not freeways, okay? It's 5 kilometers a day going up the coast. And every day they made journal entries of what they saw of the resources of the state. And virtually every day they recorded flower fields from San Diego to San Francisco in their second expedition in 1770. And it's a fantastic document. I reviewed it in a sense with the quotations, but at the same time, there's a book out in San Diego Press by Alan K. Brown, who has the original data of the journals of Juan Crespi that were done, that came from Madrid, Spain. So this is the poppy fields. It's emblematic, and I think I want to go to the next. What do I do to say the next
Just say
slide?
next.
Next. Next.
Working on it.
I thought it was automated. This might be the most famous picture. You realize there were no color photographs at this time. This is a black and white photo that was tinted. They literally painted on the top of the print to generate a realistic look at this Altadena poppy field. It's up in the high part of the field. I think it's near Lake Boulevard at the top, just below the mountain. And it's also an area where there was a Pacific Electric Railway where they went up to Echo Mountain along the Echo Mountain. It's incline. Huh?
Mount Curve and Palm for those people. that
Yeah,
are-
Mountain Curve, okay. And they also tinted a few other species. But no, the bloom goes to the base of the mountain and no farther. But it was seen from 30 miles away in San Pedro. People come in the harbor, they see this golden block from 30 miles away. And it was solid poppies. Next. As well, compatriots, okay? Things that you're probably familiar with, things like popcorn flower, red maize, penstemon, eminenthe, lupins, chia, Visalia, and I'm sure there are others. This is my list from Riverside, but there are others that are probably more important in this part of Southern California. I'm going to go to the next slide. And in my book, I really defer to the people who made the descriptions of the state at the time. They did 3 things at once. They gave you the content of what they were observing, and we have place and time at the same time, that moment. It's hard to deny what they're seeing. This is one of the best descriptions of the state. Now, this is obviously current, but this was this description by Juan Crespi when he passed through Point Conception along the beach, which is now covered with fields of oats. But the quotes are just amazing. As many as the flowers we've been seeing have been meeting all along the way, that is through Southern California from San Diego. It was not such a plenty as is here, for it is all one mass blossom, great quantities of white, yellow, red, purple, and blue ones, yellow violets, and a great deal of larkspur, poppy, and chia. And what graced the fields most of all was the sight of all different sorts of colors together. This happens to be in the Carrizo Plain area, where there still is some survival of wildflowers because of the aridity of the place. Next slide.
And I can confidently say Rich doesn't have the technology to use AI, so this is
Yeah.
all real.
It's all real. Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Them's 5 minutes.
Every time a new swarm of people, of humanity came to California, you get another outbreak of written books and writings of the state. And the gold rush was the next great suite of documents. And there are a couple here. Clarence King, who was a geologist, but was absolutely a phenomenal writer. Last night I read the nudies of Pike. And that's a phenomenal tragedy. It should be worth reading. But anyway, they all went to Pacheco Pass. From Gilroy, you go to a pass, and then you have Fresno in the foreground and Yosemite in the background. And Clarence King said he saw a great inland prairie sea extending for 500 miles, now a broad arabesque of colors. And John Muir said all the ground was covered not with grass, but with radiant corollas. Hundreds of these happy sun plants brushed against my feet at every step, as if I were wading in liquid gold. And two scenes from roughly Pacheco Pass or the Central Valley. Next. And there are two that are less known, but I really like it. William Perkins, who ran a store in the gold rush areas in Sonora County. And he had to go back and forth from San Francisco to get supplies to keep feeding the miners. And he said when he was going across in the springtime, the whole country is one immense flower bed. The hills look like gigantic bouquets, and the llanos, the plains, like a Persian carpet. And John Hittel, and he was on a railroad in the 1870s, so that we finally had more technology in the area. You didn't have to walk it. He said, along the railroads on either hand runs continuously a rich, radiant bloom. Your sight becomes pained, your brain would be bewildered by watching the galloping rainbow. I only wished, I'm young. I just wasn't old enough to be able to see this. I even asked my father, he lived to 96, he was born in 1912, but he didn't remember. He did take pictures of flowers in this Bakersfield area at one time. Next. And a scientist, J.F. James, and it's American Naturalist, is still a journal, right? Okay. And in the vicinity of Los Angeles, the plains surrounding the city, the hills and the valleys are one mass, gorgeous, brilliant flowers. Most conspicuous is the California poppy. 1879. Next. And so we're back to this quote by Elizabeth Grinnell. And Altadena was the San Pasqual Rancho. And she wrote this little thing and sent it to the LA Times. The altar cloth of San Pasqual, poppy lands of the Mesa. But once in a year, this cloth of gold unfolded for men to see and spread at your feet of the mountains old for the Easter Jubilee. I am kneeling in rapture before its shrine. Have you seen it and worshipped, O neighbor of mine? Elizabeth Grinnell, not related to the famous Grinnell at UC Berkeley. Next. And this was the very first picture of the poppy field, but everybody went up this railway. Now it's got a railway on it, and this picture was in 1895, by the way. And so they got a ride from Los Angeles through Pasadena to get up here. And then their next stop, they're going to go up the Echo Mountain Incline. But here they are in their Victorian garb. I'm glad I wasn't living in those days. I hate to dress like that, have a bunch of hats. But everybody was really dressed up and picking the poppy fields. I can't think of a worse plant to put in a vase because they will so fast. But there it is. Next slide.
Well, you tell us your personal history there.
Yeah, no, they really really were.
It was your grand. Was
Oh,
your
okay.
grandpa.
Well,
give us the.
Can you go back there?
Can you go back one?
Yeah. This is the Echo Mountain Incline. And my grandparents are right there.
Wow.
They were just off and they were about to go up that really steep slope, like 20 to 30 degrees. It's amazing. I never met them. They passed before I was born. So 1907 is that shot. Next slide. Yeah, and then you can also look at the fields from above, like the Echo Mountain Incline. And there was a lady who never was named, who had a phenomenal description of the poppy fields as seen from the mountains above looking down. The mesa was, quote, epiphany for a lady, thoroughly bubbling with delight. It is a dream of beauty. It is if one of the brightest sunset clouds had dropped down and wrapped the hills in its mantle. And I like this one, Charles Francis Saunders, maybe he wrote books about the landscape and flowers. And he called the poppy fields Hesperian gardens and sheeted fire. And the LA Times had phenomenal descriptions over and over again. You want to know where the parade came from? This is the inspiration. It really was. We've forgotten that. Next slide. And here's the blow-by-blow account from 1886 to 1918. And there's a statement of my opinion of mine about the flower abundance year by year. And all the dates that were recorded in the LA Times, year by year by year. And some years with 3 stars are really tremendous blooms, the 2 stars are normal, 1 star is not very good. And there were even a couple of years where the rains were so light that they had no flowers at all, but that was only twice in all those years. Basically, the relationship is the more rain, the better the bloom. That is no longer the case. If you want a good bloom here nowadays, we've got invasive annuals that are competing them against them. And once in a while, we will have a protracted drought of 2 or 3 years, which hammers the introduced annuals from Spain. And then you get the first wet year after that. Then you get the chance for these wildflowers, a long seed life. They'll burst out in growth without the competition from the grasses. And it doesn't happen very often, but we occasionally get them where I've won the first wet year after a long drought. This year, I'm not too hopeful because the rains came so early. There's another correlation is that the earlier the rainy season, the more the weeds take over. Late rain years are good ones, like last year, except it didn't rain enough. Next, keep talking. He's got eyes on it. I put this in for John, but this is the book, if you're interested. It really is a book of quotes. Okay. And it's a university, UC Press still has them in file ready. It's in print. And
It's a devastating book. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book.
yeah,
Help the sales along.
okay. Thanks. Next. Okay.
And I think, yeah. And thank you for driving all the way up to unpack this for us. It's always riveting to hear Rich talk about the kind of conditions of early California, because for me, I think he single-handedly upended ideas of what that native ecology actually looked like in our kind of imagination of this. And when you look at those photos, it just looked like California was like the most colorful place in the entire cosmos at some point, right? And then we showed up. All right, let's move it. Yeah, let me complicate things here.
We brought our friends with us.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's move into our next slide here. Okay. I want to unpack a project that sort of emerges from a bunch of folks that at this point we're all kind of students of Rich Minnich here in the wildflower recovery think tank. And one of the things we realize, and even as Rich was saying, that depending on the meteorology, invasives may kind of come in earlier and then, kind of suppress the native conditions. And of course, we have a wildfire, which has displaced so many people. on one hand, and my heart goes out to you if you're an Altadenan here and you're a wildfire displaced person. I have so many friends that are. It is a really difficult moment in this cultural space, right, that we inhabit. And yet these very flowers, you know, whether they're California poppy or fire-finding poppies or other, you know, Matilla poppies, they tell the story of fire, which was legible to some people and not legible to others. And these are the very poppies that were used to attract developers to create subdivisions and sell lots and increase the county tax base. Let's move in the next slide. Predating that, of course, was this sort of like high Victorian tourism. This is the top 10%, right? They probably from the East Coast, you know, and they've come out to see the most amazing, apparently the most technologically advanced railway of Mount Low Railway at the time, which was like pre-amusement park kind of thing. Beyond, you see almost in this utopic vision, the Pacific Electric Railroad coming right up through these poppy fields. As Rich mentioned before, the tinted you know, lantern photos that demonstrate the color here, and everyone picking the flowers, being attracted, and also being conveyed here by technology, communication, and the kind of promise of a paradisic experience up here in this alluvial fan of Altadena. Next, please. And of course, here on the left is a kind of condition that we've seen. And I know it could be a painful image to look at on one hand. Quite a few of the brick chimneys built, whether they were in the, you know, late 1800s or 1920s, still remain. Some of the folks in the WRTT are architectural historians who are pretty preeminent in the space, and basically said, look, there is nothing to preserve. We must preserve a people, a way of life, a culture. And so therefore, part of what the aim is to have this goal in mind right now. I think at this moment in our culture is post Eaton Fire, what the WRDT really is working for is community retention. That is the hugest goal, and that is probably the hardest thing to create right now, because you have a cultural crisis upon us of this very significant community, which could be its own kind of conference. But that said, we want to create conditions that help the community to just reconnect with the land, but also to kind of reframe the environmental psychology of trauma, because the trauma that has happened post-Eaton, not only within people, but also to the landscape. What we realize is there are a series of traumas that have kind of precipitated the conditions that we have now. So part of the project, this idea of an Altadena Native Bloom, is to give away as many poppy seeds as we can this February to everyone in Altadena, so that they can broadcast and reseed all of the alluvial plain of Altadena with poppies and restore this altar cloth of San Pasqual, right? And it's kind of a daring, a vision, but it is completely possible. It is very, very possible. And one of the things that I think is important in the framing of this is not just its restoration, but similar to Rich's list of the LA Times coverage, we want to keep Altadena in the media cycle over and over, season after season. And so not just poppies, but other natives that will emerge and kind of keep people talking about Altadena, which is really critical, but also to season by season help change the environmental psychology of the community and help people to come together. So there'll be events and all kinds of other things that I would love to invite CNPS, this chapter, other chapters that come to participate in events, talk, tell us about your knowledge of wildflowers and what you guys are doing too, because I think that's really important. Let's go to the next slide here. I think that with the extensive broadcasting, what it begins to do is help us to maybe re-envision Altadena anew, but having a very intimate and substantive look in its native ecology. We want to promote native species and to basically propagate them enough to suppress the invasive species that, you know, are everywhere, you know, at this point. And let's go to the next slide. And so, and this is, these are some photos that were, this is a piece of a slideshow that was presented by Dorothy Wong, who's a Altadena town council person, to a bunch of middle schoolers, young people in a school, of which I don't think any of you guys could be categorized as, but just to say that these, you know, we're just trying to show like young people, like this is what a poppy seed looks like. And it is amazing how many people don't know what that looks like, you know, quite frankly. And I could count myself as one of them, maybe just last year. Next. And we're advocating a no-touch seed broadcasting because there are still, the jury's still out on the calculus of post FEMA chemistry in the ground in terms of soil toxicity. So we want to kind of just inform, especially young people, to you know, throw the seed, not to dig, don't get in there, because lot by lot, it's one thing after the other. And so it is a kind of outreach and education process. Let's go to the next slide. And then I don't know if Ty, did you see this one? I took your thing. This is me redo it just for young people, so they can see the, you know, and basically from you know, kind of the zones in the year in which the various native seed mix that Ty had put together for this project, demonstrating when the peak blooms were. And during those intensities, April, May, June, July, August, we'll be mounting events up and down Altadena. We're getting other partners, including local Altadena partners, but also other institutions, such as there's some friends of ours at the Huntington Library, Museum of Contemporary Art, conceptual art performances and things like that, if you're into that kind of thing. And community outreach, you know, gardening events, etc. And I think that's something that we want to promote to just create energy, cultural energy through ecology, you know, in the foothills of Altadena through the summer, and likely every year, in fact. Because as we propagate these seeds, they will in turn self-propagate, and then, you know, it's a virtuous cycle, and that's what we're hoping for. Next. And so there's kind of a distribution scheme of how we want to get seeds out. We want them to be as very kind of as low tech as possible, hand to hand, touching, people feeling. You know, we don't want to just dump a bunch of bags everywhere, but like people are putting them in envelopes, giving them to kids, and so it's already begun. But we want to kind of amp it up and go mass scale on this. Next. And so there's some cool, Ty, you remember this.
Yep.
This is a kind of community outreach table we had at a local a church in Altadena Baptist Church.
That burned down.
That burned down. Yeah, and this is in fact, this is a event that happens in a tent next to the site, right, of the church. And there's some young Girl Scouts who had seen those photos that Rich was showing, and they started painting that exact thing, like unprompted. Like I walked over and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" She's like, "These are poppies. I love that image." We can inspire the next generation by what was there before that we never saw and they haven't yet seen. They might get a chance to see this again. Let's go to the next slide. And then, so this is really charming. We've been working with a group, I think a very substantial group in Altadena, the Altogether communities who have learned a lot of things from Tubbs Fire and other wildfire recovery activists, and they formed these kind of neighborhood groups. So some of you guys may have heard this. It's very local, it's very community-based community. So one of the Altadena Altogether groups had a Halloween festival on the street. And they're like, "Can you bring the seeds?" So we brought some of the seeds. And I think it was a Disney cartoon, a cartoonist or a Disney animation production manager or something. At her house, she had this big bowl of the poppy seeds. And then there's this kind of a scooper of, I think it's like, I forget, it was like 30 grams or something like this, scooper, which basically is enough to populate most front yard setbacks in Altadena. So if you just get a scoop of this, then they were this wonderful young woman here was helping these kids put them in envelopes, and they'd be walking. And some of the kids were like, "What is this?" They're expecting candy, and they're like, "Whoa, what is this?" And yeah, she got to tell them what it was, and it was really magical, actually. Next. And so this is really, there are houses being built. There's things that's progressed much farther than, when we were envisioning this image, but you can kind of imagine what that might do to the community. So we really wanted to get everybody fired up about this idea. And I just think, maybe go to the next slide. Say, do we have one? Oh, yeah. Well, to just finish on that point, I think there is a model of recovery that is there are different ideas about wildfire recovery. Some could be very limited. For some, it might just be, well, let's just restore the tax base and we are whole, we are recovered. That would be a very non-aspirational kind of recovery, right? But there's a total cultural recovery of neighborhoods, of people, of ecology, and a vision. I want to promote a vision of, can we recover even more than what we lost? Can we recover ourselves, our neighborhoods, our community, our connection to the natural environment? That's a question that I think we want to promote in the WRTT. There's an article I wrote in Zocalo Public Square. There's a QR code that takes you there if you're interested. It talks about how we can find micro mixed use neighborhoods that are populated with life, multi-generational wealth for families of any income stream, in terms of how we share and pool community property. And maybe you go to the next slide. And how we integrate like the ideas of ecology with things that we have lost. We've lost the poppies. We've lost public transportation. We're just getting it back. How much of that can we recover, for ourselves in this culture? Next. And so I'll end this portion of the presentation here, and we'll kind of save maybe questions for later, but I'll pass it to Ty for his portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
My problem is I made a PowerPoint and my notes are on the side of the PowerPoint.
I was curious, are these poppies, are there any poppies? I've never seen poppies in Altadena.
Yeah, I mean, my yard has a lot of poppies. I think your yard has a lot of
But
poppies.
that's because I planted them.
Yeah.
Wild ones too.
The ones in my yard came up, but I don't know where they came from. I did plant some more later. It's interesting that, and I'll talk about this when I'm doing my portion, but there are a lot of fire flowers popping up around Altadena now, and I have not seen any poppies among those. I'm not sure why that is. Rich might have an answer for that.
They bloom later, I think some.
Too early.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen any young ones, but then they're covered up by mostly, there's a whole lot of cheeseweed. And there are a lot of grasses that are, kind of taking over. Cheeseweed seems to be huge, but there still are other things popping up.
And is it the Schultzia for them?
I have not seen
Is
any.
that the one that was?
That should be the one that we had, yeah. Then there are two versions of the Schultzia californica, or maybe more, but there's the coastal version that we used to have, and then there's the valley version that's out on the desert side. This is the desert side one.
Because I know in Yellow Valley, is there.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to mirror display it once again, because it won't show.
I won't show.
It won't show.
Okay, I'm gonna have to wing it then without notes. Well, then you can go ahead and do that. Well, I'll go ahead and do it then. Still. So, we've got a good introduction to the, our program, what we want to do. So what I'm gonna do is walk you through a few pictures of, it's kind of, we didn't really talk a whole lot about what we were gonna do. Rich was doing his and John was doing his and I was doing mine. Turns out we have some overlap. But naturally, we're talking about the same thing. So, so this is a picture of, kind of what Altadena might have looked like, but this is in the Antelope Valley a couple of years ago. And do I just do the arrow to get it to the minutes or
You have to click on the screen anywhere.
anywhere on the
Not
screen?
not on the.
Using the mouse. And then just that, okay.
And then you can use the names.
Okay. There we go. And again, more of the same. This is again, the Antelope Valley, but looks very similar, but I wanted to kind of ease us into the feel of what Altadena used to look like. And so we're looking at places where wildflowers are abundant. And this is the Carrizo Plain again. These are all pictures I took, by the way. And I mean, again, the descriptions that Rich was reading from the past, and I don't know how many of us could write that eloquently, but they were fabulous. But you look at this and you're just overcome with the gorgeous depth of color, the variety of color, the beauty. I didn't include one picture in here. Oops, I went a little too fast. There's a picture I've taken in the Carrizo Plain where there are a lot of sunflowers, and then out in the distance there is a beautiful deep blue, almost purple lake. But if you go out to it, it's all flowers. It's blue flowers, and you think it's a lake from a distance. It's fountains. But we had a fire, and some of you remember the fire. I remember the fire. This is me experiencing the fire, and it was very different than a fire would have been in a typical grassland wildflower regime. This is kind of what a fire would look like. This was last year up the Central Valley a little ways. But this is what our typical fires would have burned like in a wildflower grassland, mixed grassland area. Does it kill the wildflowers? A lot of them come back and need this actually. Does it kill the trees? This is probably a little bit like Altadena looked in the past. Fewer trees, but the trees were mostly confined to the riparian corridors, and the wildflowers were up on the alluvial hilltops. But after the fire, we have a lot of vacant lots. This is a friend's lot, that she asked me to go look at. She has since moved to San Luis Obispo. But this lot has almost no native plants on it. It does have a lot of tree of heaven growing, a whole lot of it, highly invasive tree of heaven. And we have someone here, Bill, raise your hand, Bill, who is volunteering. He's licensed to kill. He's the 3007, and he is volunteering his services to people in Altadena, the lost their homes to fires, to come and, I would like to say, weed out the tree of heaven, to get rid of the tree of heaven for you. So if you need tree of heaven removal, talk to Bill. And Bill is also, we're trying to get him back working in Eaton Canyon again, because there's a tremendous problem with invasives in there as well. So, and this is kind of, in general, what Altadena looks like now. There's a whole lot of nothing, and we've seen the pictures of what it looked like before. This one, I took the picture mainly because I'm gonna jump on a little pet peeve of mine for a second. This house was surrounded by block walls on 3 sides. It had concrete all around the house on 3 sides. It had a little patch of front lawn, and it burned down. And we can see that that's a but the point being that it was the houses that were burning. It wasn't the plants that were burning the houses. The houses were what was catching on fire. There weren't any plants here to catch this house on fire. But the plants are destined to come back after a fire when we have our native wildflower regime. This is after a fire, and these are either sky lupins or bicolor lupins. I'm not sure which. I didn't key them when I took the picture, and they're really hard to key anyway. So, but as you can see, the tree in the back was burned. Chia coming back. All these pictures are in places that I went after fires. It's part of my job mostly. This was an insurance job. Another place where an electrical company lit a fire, different one, but same outcome, different place. And this is the same area. You can see the pine was killed, and the Grinnell's penstemons are coming up, and they're gorgeous. They did very well after the fire. And these are foothill poppies, and again, I never saw foothill poppies on this hillside before, and then after the fire, the foothill poppies took over. It was fantastic. And our bush poppy, which requires fire for its seeds to germinate, that absolutely requires it. Again, here after fire, you can see the burn stick in the background.
And sorry, what month were some of these photos taken?
They were taken after spring and through summer.
Okay.
This is a wind poppy. It's another fire follower. And California poppies, which aren't technically fire followers, but they do well when other things are, nowadays, when their competition is burned off, then they do better. As is in the case here, that burned fence post behind it there. So, and you can see it's trying to compete with the Avena, the wild oats there that are non-native. And then we had in Altadena, we have some fire recovery, some fire followers. This is large flowered Phacelia. This is in the church parking lot, the same one where that John showed the picture of the kids painting pictures of the flowers, but it found a crack. A fire following flower found a crack in a parking lot after a fire. And a little closer.
Wow, that's great.
Let's see, that to be there for decades.
Yeah, exactly. Here's melasma. I have found many lots in Altadena with melasma or laurel sumac shrubs coming up where they weren't before. I know they weren't before. This is a friend's property. I know she did not have melasma growing on her property before. She has several melasma bushes coming up on her property now. So where there is a will, life will, as in famous quote from Jurassic Park, life finds a way. And the ever famous fire follower, poodle dog bush. This is right across the street from that friend's house, poodle dog bush coming up in a yard. Now, this lady had native plants in her yard already, but she didn't have poodle dog bush. Nobody plants poodle dog bush, but it comes up after fires. I don't know where some of these seeds came from. I don't know whether they were blown in during the fire and the windstorm or whether they were in the seed bank all along. But they're there now and they're showing up.
And FEMA even took like a couple feet off a lot of these lots.
Yeah, not in the place where this particular one was, but yeah, a lot of them. Mostly where they took off the earth, there's not much but really weeds growing. This, I took this one yesterday. It's a California sagebrush.
Thank you.
That just is, I guess all you guys are in such rapt attention that nobody moved.
Great photos.
There's a comment in the chat too that in Puente Hills, they took the top off of a mountain and when it rained, and a few months later, there was a thick field of a royal lupin that emerged without any human action.
Wow.
So it just speaks to the seedbed. That was in 2022. And another comment that Melosma, yes, it's from Cynthia actually, is in the seed bank. So we should follow nature's cue.
Right. So here's a Phacelia yesterday on a lot, burned off lot. And popcorn flower, as Rich mentioned, most of these species actually, on a burned off lot. I'm not sure whether this is valley popcorn flower or Lagerbrathes nana, which it kind of is in between the two, but again, I didn't key it out. You have to put the nutlets under a microscope and that's a pain. This is another Phacelia, caterpillar Phacelia. Phacelias really seem to like it. The Helianthus, we have two different ones. This is Helianthus annuus. And then we also have California, what? Yeah. Encilia californica, both volunteering. Yes.
These are summer flowers.
Summer flowers, but they're up now. The fire had, but we're having weird weather and the fire, you know, there's a whole lot of weirdness going on, but these plants are volunteering. These are native plants that are volunteering on burned lots. Which is what I'm getting at. This one, this is on Maya's property. And this is a which nephalium? Yeah, pseudonephalium luteolum. Or microcephala, yeah. And I was gonna mention Maya's property. Maya, I was taking this picture. She is also missing her house. But I was driving around looking for, wildflowers that have been popping up on burned lots. And she said, is there anything I can answer a question for you? And she's just pulled up in the street behind me, and I'm bending over, taking a picture. I said, well, I'm just taking pictures of the flowers. She goes, oh, that's really cool. And we got to chatting, and she has planted seeds, and that's one of the wildflowers on her lot. And that's one of the, but not this, because this doesn't come in any wildflower seed mix. But this is something people want to do this, and so we're falling into downhill basically because people really want to do this. And some of them are jumping the gun on us. So thanks, Maya. Another pseudonephalium. I think this was Californium. So now I want to get into kind of divisions, and I did a much less expert job of colorizing these photos, mostly used AI with a little bit of touch up, but basically I just went colorize it to the AI. So they're not nearly as good as the ones that Rich had that were hand done sometime in the past. But so that's what it looked like. Well, these are some of what Altadena, these are all photos of Altadena in the past. One of the things I think that is interesting here is this is a little bit later. You can see the road up in the back that went up to Echo Mountain to the hotel. You can see the steep incline of the railroad, and you can see that curve. If let me walk over there. But if you're looking right here, that's the railway that was in the picture that Rich showed, and I'll show it again. But, and the people were probably right here,
Yeah.
taking pictures of the poppies. And picking the poppies, but you can see Altadena starting to grow, and you see rows of orchards, because that was the next thing that came in Altadena was orchards. And the trees that are up here in Altadena, none of those trees are native to Altadena. They're all been planted there by people. Some of those trees are still there, but that was when they were originally brought in.
Any idea of the year of that?
That picture did not have a date on it. It didn't want me to go back. So,
You can send it to me and I'll figure it out.
yeah, I will. This was, we messed around with different seed mixes. People move. Either I'm putting you to sleep or you're really paying a lot of attention.
The screen actually looks better.
This was the seed mix that we eventually settled on. I was doing pricing it out and what was available and all that. I had more seeds originally. These were all locally native wildflowers. Now, one of the important things that we're doing here is we are not trying to do revegetation. We're not trying to do restoration. What we are doing is planting locally native wildflowers in people's yards, essentially their gardens. Some of the things that some people that are purists were really worried about is, well, you're not getting hyper-local seed stock. These are in people's yards. We're not trying to revegetate the hillsides. We're not trying to do restoration. We're not trying to do slope stabilization. This is all about people's yards and getting people yards beautified with appropriate locally native flowers. And hopefully we will end up with people getting excited about the native flowers that will reproduce and continue to reproduce in their yard and provide more habitat for wildlife. And because the native plants, in my yard's full of native plants, and that's where the birds go. That's where the pollinators go. That's where all the wildlife goes, is to the native plants. So, and in order to do that, what I've done here is shown, here's the old picture. And then my relatively weak colorization skills. And then this is from the exact same spot today.
Oh, wow.
If you look at the skyline in the back, and you'll see that that's the exact same spot today. And then here's what we envision that it possibly could look like after we do our program here, if these people participate. Another photograph, and again, weak colorization skills. And this is what it looks like today. And the potential.
It's great.
And another. And colorized. And this one actually had a date on it. I think it was 1909, if I remember right. And what it looks like today. And what it could look like. And so that's the end of that. I don't know what we're gonna do about lights, but
I think Dave's on it.
So I wanted to say that we are open for donations at the table in the back. That we can take donations, credit card, whatever, to start purchasing seeds. We also have a sign up there if you're interested in.
I'm calling over there, Dave.
And if you're interested in being one of the, someone that works at one of the tables at one of the events that we're going to try and go to throughout the next year. Within 100 yards of my house yesterday, there were 3 events that we could have been at, that I wish we were at, or I shouldn't say yesterday, over the weekend. There were 3 events that we should have and could have been at, and it would have been wonderful to be at. So we could really use help once we get enough money to buy seeds and get out there and start distributing and have people that are excited about sharing this with their neighbors in Altadena. So thanks a lot.
So I might want to see to make a donation, you go to the store, you go on our website. And where you go to purchase stuff. in the store, and there you can,
For the people online that couldn't hear, Gabi was saying, if you need to, if you're not gonna donate here, you want to donate later. If you're not here tonight, you can also go to our website and go to the area where you purchase things on the website. And there is a spot in there for making a donation to Altadena Native Bloom.
There is a question online,
Okay, question?
and the question is, does anybody express concern that the poppies might be toxic to dogs and pets in the neighborhood? No.
No. The answer is no.
We can eat poppies.
Yeah, I don't feed poppies to my tortoises, but I am, there are lots of people have poppies in their yard with their pets, and I've never heard of a problem.
I actually have two questions.
Yes, question.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant to mention, also, I forgot to mention Nina over here. Nina is working on something that's adjunct to us in collecting seeds of native flowers for restoration projects, as opposed to this for non-restoration projects. And we will be supporting Nina as well. So, any other questions? Nina, you had a question?
Yes, yeah, two questions. Obviously, we love the idea of kind of adding more wildflowers to our urban areas. But the first question is, I feel like I get, people asking me all the time, like, can I just take these in on my hike? Or like, I picked up a seed bomb and like, I love throwing these out on hike. Is there, any kind of like information campaign that you're doing to really like, even though you're.
I didn't have my notes, and I meant to mention that. I have read about people, I read about just today, someone in the Palos Verdes area throwing seed bombs. And I'm not a big fan of this, the guerrilla seeding efforts.
Yeah.
We don't know what's in the seed bombs. We don't know whether they're locally appropriate. We don't even know if they're native. If you buy a commercial wildflower seed mix, you'll get Texas bluebells and all kinds of things in there that don't belong in our area.
And sometimes we listen, which is invasive exotic.
Which, and
Like I
Morning
saw
glory
some
that's
photos
invasive.
Here, like in your slideshow where people are kind of, it's encouraging people to just throw. I think that's something that I have concerns about, right? Because people think like I could take these on a hike. So am I just?
Yeah, no,
like,
yeah,
we are being, and this is very specific for lot owners to use on their lots. We are specifically discouraging people from doing anything other than on their own lot. That's very important to us.
I was
Thank you.
gonna say too, like, if you guys ever want to like stock the little free seed libraries, there are all kinds of outposts across Altadena, and it could be a cool partnership to like add some packets.
Yeah, one of the things about that is we don't get the chance to do the education about leaving it on your own lot and that sort of thing. So we're trying to do it as Jon said, hand to hand, face to face is what we really want to do, so we can give people the education and the mission. And get them excited about it as well. It's not so random.
Question.
Oh, sorry, I just have part two. Whenever.
Yeah, we're kind of out of time, so maybe one more question in person and one more online, and then we need to wrap up.
We'll get one real quick. Go ahead, Nina.
I want her, because I.
Go ahead, Nina. Real.
Yeah,
Kind of parallels with my question.
okay, yeah, my other question was just, thinking about how, you were talking about how you didn't want people kind of working in the soil, but, the seeds can't just germinate on their own without tending. And even just for puppies, it's helpful to raise them in, they need mulch, they need water, what is that relationship?
One of the things that happened was when we were first approaching mega donors about this, our original, target budget was $200,000 because we calculated, and it was on that one slide, how many acres of seeds we needed, how many pounds per acre we needed, how much they cost. We had this $200,000 budget, and we were looking at some mega donors that were really excited about getting involved. But then people started, all this talk about the toxic soils and all that started coming up, and these mega donors all backed out because, we don't want people playing in the dirt, and it's toxic, and we don't want to be liable for, encouraging people to go play in the dirt. And so that was where that came from. So, yeah.
So I only know a synopsis of Rich's book, but based on what we've learned, isn't it where there's an opportunity for the seed bank to sprout. And how are those going to be kind of protected when we're adding different gene diversity into the yard, private yards?
Well, I will say that
We can get.
I understand. And I am, given the fact that we're still talking about people's yards, they're gonna rebuild their houses, they're gonna put whatever garden they want in there eventually. We're hoping to encourage them by doing this to put a larger percentage of their garden native. I have found all of those things around Altadena growing that were probably in the seed bank or may have blown in, but probably in the seed bank. But it's still few and far between. There isn't a whole lot of it. It's there, it's spread out, but it's really, really sparse. So I don't think we're really going to be, we're gonna be improving the situation where there isn't enough there to really make a difference. And you had one online?
So, there was a question, that people get excited about seeing flowers. What happens if neighbors buy and plant lantana or other nursery flowers? Is there any ongoing lesson plans / teaching, to support, where'd it go? So, to support neighbors about, others about improvising with non-natives that are invasive?
I think that, I mean, this is our whole mission. So come to CNPS, you'll start learning about that. That's our whole mission. But I think the best answer to that question is when your yard is on fire with native flowers and they've got their lantana bush. I mean, lantana is a neat looking bush. Butterflies love it. It kind of takes over. It smells awful, but when they see your yard and they go, what's going on? You know, look at all this stuff. You go, hey, I don't even have to water it, you know, and then you can start getting that lesson across. But
It's usually.
okay, we got to cut off.
Thank you. Thank you very much.